Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome back to the OMG MotoGP podcast with myself, Harry Benjamin, former Grand Prix rider and British champion Keith Huewen, and Crash MotoGP editor Pete McLaren. What year is it? Where are we? It's a reunion. God, I can't remember the last time all three of us were here. I think people thought we'd fallen out at some point, and I was backing that narrative, but not quite. We're fresh off the British Grand Prix, gents. It's a pleasure to see you both. Pete, how was your British Grand Prix experience? We bumped into each other, didn't we? We had dinner. Very lovely.
Yeah. Saw you on Sunday night, Harry, after you made your way out of the MotoGP Premier VIP area, I think it was.
Well, throw me under the bus then. Jeez.
But yeah, no, it was. Sunday. It was great racing. Obviously, a British winner in the Moto2 class. The audience figures, so the spectators, it was a bit disappointing, wasn't it? You're never quite sure with Silverstone till the numbers come out, because the traffic getting in, that was no issue. But I know Keith's going to have some thoughts on this. The traffic coming in, that's always well organised anyway, isn't it? So you're always straight in. But suddenly it was, hang on, it does feel a little bit quiet here. And then, when the numbers came out, I think it was a bit of a shame, because Saturday, pretty much similar to last year, but Sunday was down a bit, wasn't it?
I'm going to leave the negatives until the end of this podcast, I think. I think we'll start off with the positive, shall we? Because that's more like it. It was a great event. There's no doubt about that. Everybody I've spoken to, riders, teams, the spectators that were there, that were mates of mine, have said what a great event it was. And Silverstone put on a great event. The fact it's not making the numbers we'll talk about perhaps in a minute. But the big deal, of course, is the beast is back. I love some of the headlines. I mean, it's made for sub-editors and the like, isn't it? The beautiful beast, the beauty of the beast, and so on and so forth. They were rolling them out for Enea doing the double. I mean, his first wins of the year were absolutely superb. I mean, it was a great ride from him. And at one point, it looked like maybe, I mean, they all ran out of fuel on the slowing down lap. I know it's a long track, I know it's a fast track, but I mean, the fact was on the sprint race on Saturday, they'd all got themselves in a right old mess with the fuel loads and the like. And it looked like Sunday there could be a problem with that, but obviously they've got it sorted out. And then at the other end of the scale, the unluckiest team, honestly, are Trackhouse ever going to catch a break, I wonder? I mean, you think to yourself, this team is a great little team. It's coming good. At any moment, these guys can be on the podium, no problem at all. Got the right bikes, right riders. They're both going really, really well. And they take each other out. I mean, incredible.
Just to pick up on it, as you say, Keith, that Trackhouse unlucky as well, and just the speed of the fuel, the speed of the race. I mean, I think the top 16 riders were quicker than Aleix last year, and I think that's what caught some of them out, wasn't it? With the fuel, they were just going so much more quicker and burning so much more fuel that suddenly they were getting a bit low. But the Trackhouse guys really unlucky. I mean, Raul was sort of pretty distraught after the race, but not really his fault. It was just such a combination of things that he lost the front on the hard front. Was it only Raul and Aleix picked the hard front? Spots of rain on the grid, cold temperatures. It was always a bit of a risky thing. He loses the front, and then Miguel's already ran wide, and he's sort of tiptoeing around the outside, and bang, it comes together. It was sort of a series of things that happened there. But what a shame for their livery as well, wasn't it? I mean, that wonderful livery that they came out with, and it was in the gravel after less than a lap. So a bit of a shame, that one.
It certainly was a shame.
I think the atmosphere, I mean,
go on, Mr. Huewen.
I want to roll on the atmosphere of it with the way that they've done the liveries and everything, the way that it's the 75th anniversary since 1949 with the Isle of Man, of course. They got an original Porcupine, I think it was, that was on the grid as well from that era of 1949. I think that was the bike that won the championship that year as well. I mean, a lot of effort went into this weekend.
It did, didn't it? And you could tell. And I when I was swanning around in my my hospitality area, I had some of the old safety cars there as well, which is quite cool to have a look at. Sorry, four wheels. I know. But and actually, that's my sort of my analogy to begin with, because I want to start at the top properly with Enea, and first win of the season, obviously fantastic. But Ducati losing both Bastianini and now, the championship leader, he could walk away from Ducati with the number one plate at the end of the year and take it from them. And they've lost two of their riders. Okay, I know they're doing it for Marc Marquez. And there's a very similar, it's not the same, but very similar thing happening and happened in Formula One with Carlos Sainz being forced to leave Ferrari because Lewis Hamilton is available and on the market. And you don't miss an opportunity to sign Lewis Hamilton. You don't miss an opportunity to sign Marc Marquez. But they're losing both riders, and both now seem very, very capable of challenging for the title. It just seems a bizarre way to go about business at the moment.
I like the way you think, because you think like a car racing person. I mean, to be honest, it makes no bloody difference to me whatsoever. I got to say that it just adds a little bit of spice to it. And that's assuming Pecco Bagnaia is going to trip himself up a bit more often during the course of the year. There's still 300 and whatever it is points on the table for this year. Bagnaia, another little mistake from him. I mean, washed the front out. Marquez had a washed out front end as well. It was kind of tricky conditions perhaps for them over the weekend. They didn't score the kind of points that perhaps they would do. He lost the lead in the championship again, Bagnaia. Does it really? I suppose it does matter the number one plate to an extent, but yeah, it's about the manufacturer winning the world title. If someone else takes the deed away. I mean, I'm pleased to see Enea Bastianini back on that kind of form. There's no doubt about it. He was up against it a bit. You know, people argued that Jorge Martin should have had that place and not Bastianini. Bastianini was put into the main factory Ducati team, and to the detriment of Jorge Martin. And of course, Jorge Martin then, disappears from Pramac because Pramac have gone to Yamaha and so on. There's all that shenanigans going on. It's got spice. I like that. It's got that little extra context to it that I personally really, really like. And let's have some aggravation. Let's have a little bit of that. Come on if you think you're hard enough. It's a perfect thing within bike sport.
I was going to say, yeah, I think it is. It's a plot twist, isn't it? We were all looking at Martin maybe being the guy who was going to perhaps leave with the number one plate if somebody left. And now there could be two of them. There could be Bastianini as well. He could be at Tech 2 next year with a number one plate on that KTM. So, yeah, double trouble, I suppose, in that regard. As Keith says, of course, the main thing is for Ducati to win it. But they're going to win it, aren't they? With all their guys at the top of the championship, a Ducati rider is going to have a number one plate. And if that's the case, they want it to be the guys in red, really, that have that plate. But Bastianini, the form he's on, as Mark said on Sunday, when he's on these kind of days, he's unbeatable. The issue is, or the big question now is, how many more days like this can he have? I mean, but it's looking quite good. I mean, I think he's on about 5 podiums out of 10 races, which is not far off the ratio of Bagnaia, of Martin so far this year. And as Keith said, highlighted the mistake by Bagnaia on Saturday. Bastianini hasn't really made those mistakes. Obviously, the long lap penalty that he sort of just refused to accept in Catalonia, that might come back to haunt him because he lost some points there, didn't he, with the post-race penalty that they gave him for sort of refusing to take that penalty in the race. But he's closing in. And if he carries on like this, he says 10 rounds, that's 370-odd points, plenty of time left. And, the big question now is that, Bagnaia might be under sort of attack from two different riders. And as you said, Harry, the two riders that just a few years ago were seen as the future of Ducati and are now the future of other manufacturers.
I think there's a key here as well that Bastianini holds to the later part of this season in his skill at being able to keep tyres in, keep the optimum of a tyre towards the end of a race. Bastianini has a touch that's quite magical in keeping a tyre from the degradation that you might get from some setups. I mean, obviously with a motorbike, depends how you set it up, depends how you ride it. Obviously there are several factors to how you keep a tyre together for the whole of the race. But there are some tracks that we're coming to later on in the year where, tyre deg is going to be a major thing. And if Bastianini can make that work for him as well, and he's got this kind of flow of confidence now, and he's basically got his mojo back. There is no doubt about it. And Silverstone, what a racetrack to do it. I mean, it's one of the... It's funny, isn't it? There's such a contrast. On one side of the fence, from a fan's point of view, we hear everybody saying about, it's a terrible place to go and watch, it's a terrible place, da. And on the other side of the fence, from a racer's point of view and a team's point of view, there is no better place. It's one of the ones that they want to win. It's a great racetrack. It's a conundrum that no doubt we'll talk about.
Yeah, well, look, why don't we? Let's just see this off. Obviously, Jorge Martin finished second in the main race, but he does lead the championship. There's only a few points now that he has it by. He was 1 point behind at the end of the sprint, wasn't he? So he's closing that down, even though Bagnaia has more wins. And it was a little mistake. There was still a little mistake from Martin, wasn't there, that kind of cost him more of the chance of the win. And that's actually the one thing that... So I'm a Jorge Martin fan. I can say that pretty loud and proud. I want him to win the title. But he does make these mistakes, doesn't he? And they're nowhere near as bad as a couple of years ago, where he was having those big crashes and that kind of really took him out. But there are still those little niggles of mistakes, and I know they happen to all riders, and it's so easy to do. But maybe because I'm a fan, it just infuriates me.
Well, he might be making a few mistakes, but he's still ahead in the championship. And the bloke who we thought had started to find his way again, which was Bagnaia, he's still making mistakes as well. So yeah, it's going to be give and take throughout the year, providing nobody gets injured. I mean, you've still got Marc Marquez hanging in here. Digi had a great ride as well.
Yeah.
Aleix on Sunday, I mean, he tried that hard front tyre on the sprint race and thought that he'd have more for Sunday, but he didn't have. When we got to Sunday, I was expecting more from Aleix as well. Aprilia, not really where you perhaps want.
But what's going on there with Aprilia at the moment? Because it seems everybody, Aleix, 6th, best Aprilia by some margin, because half of them took each other out. And Pete, everyone seems to want to leave Aprilia at the moment, bar Fernandez.
It's looking that way, isn't it? Yeah, obviously there's just that one seat left with Oliveira, and it sounds like he's going to be probably on the Trackhouse bike next. The Pramac Yamaha next year, isn't he? From Trackhouse. Yes, I mean, on paper, it's actually better than the KTM, if you like, in terms of the results in recent races, isn't it? But and yet, as we said earlier, KTM have got a big lineup of names that are coming over to their way. The Aprilia on Sunday, just specifically about Silverstone, rear tyre grip for both Vinales and Espargaro just sort of dropped off a cliff, and Vinales just couldn't. He said he tried everything, playing with the traction control, all sorts of things, but just couldn't do anything with it. And Aleix just said, "Look, I did everything I could. I was on the limit, and the Ducatis are just there again. They're up there, and that's all I could do." He said it was really frustrating for him to sort of. He was in that mix, wasn't he? He, as he said, a brave choice to run that hard front tire with spots of rain and knowing cold conditions. We saw what happened to Fernandez, so he wasn't just saying that. It was a brave choice, but he said that saved his race. He said that was what allowed him to actually stay up there, because he could make a bit of ground in braking, but he was losing it all driving out the corners. And Vinales is frustrated that they're not making progress in that area, but really everyone's chasing the Ducatis, aren't they? At the start of the year, it was all a bit closer, but the Ducatis now, once they got rid of that chatter problem that they had earlier on, you get to Sunday and they just progress during the weekend. And Acosta was saying this as well. He still thinks that 8 bikes that they have, that all that information that they have, they're just making better use of it. And that's also one of the reasons why come the Sunday, the sprints can be closer, but come the Sunday, they're there. The other last reason I should mention that Aleix thinks as to why Ducati seem to make this step for the Grand Prix is that he thinks they're a bit more limited on the soft rear tyre in the sprint. He thinks that pushes the front of the Ducati, and so they're not able to go quite as quick. But come the long distance of the Grand Prix, they fit the mediums or the hard compound rear tyre. Suddenly they're sort of unleashed again. So that's his explanation as to why others are sort of a bit closer at the start of the weekends. But come Sunday, it's Ducati almost every week now.
What puzzles me, if I might say so, is that Mir signed for Honda quite quickly when there are options at Aprilia. I mean, you wonder whether his management were sort of paying attention to what was going on around in the Aprilia camp here and there, because you still got to say that at his age, with his possibilities, that it would have been a sensible option to take a look at, maybe a switch to Aprilia and dump the Honda thing. I mean, we've got an interview coming up which kind of clarifies some of his reasoning behind that. But I must say that for me, if I was his manager, I'd have been looking at what may be a possibility at Aprilia.
Well, Pete, I don't know if you heard any more of that. We'll hear from him in a minute. But
yeah, I was going to say
he seemed to just be happy to stay there for the project.
I think he sort of sees it as unfinished business, doesn't he? As Keith says, there was that obvious link. Even at the start of the year, I was thinking, just like Keith, Davide Brivio coming in, the guy who hired Mir at Suzuki, and they won the World Championship together, coming in at Trackhouse, I should say. well, there's an instant connection there for Mir if he does want to leave Honda. But, he's opted to say, he says that he doesn't want to walk out on Honda at, I think, one of the worst moments in their history is what he says in the interview coming up. So, he's clearly prepared to sort of dig in and try and get the results on the Honda. He's not satisfied, is he, with where he is at the moment? Luca Marini's making a bit of progress alongside him, or certainly looking a lot more happier. But it's hard times at Honda at the moment. But there are some upgrades coming, it seems, for Austria.
Well, you know what? We caught up with both Honda riders over the weekend with a reporter on the ground, Callum Davis, who speaks to both Luca Marini first and then JOAN MIR to get the answers as to why he has indeed extended his contract.
Your teammate confirmed for next year in Mir. How does that feel? You've still got a MotoGP world champion alongside you. I imagine a lot to learn, and that stability for the next year as well has got to be good, hasn't it?
Yeah, for me it's a good choice. JOAN is a very good guy. I have a very good relationship with him, and most of the time our feedbacks on the new updates are exactly the same, so we follow the same direction of development, and I think Honda made a good choice to keep the thing like this, keep pushing, because JOAN is a fantastic rider, super fast, and also MotoGP world champion, as you said.
You can't really get away from it. It's been a really tough year for Honda. It's been a tough era for Honda. Yes. How do you approach that as a rider? 'Cause you want to be up there winning races, but it's almost a battle for points, isn't it? How do you approach that?
First of all, I want to say that the moment that I decided to come here to Honda, I was fully with the correct mindset to come here. I didn't expect to arrive and try to fight more than for the points. It's a process. I think that Honda lost 4 years with development of the bike, so we are in delay, but we are doing a great job. I think from this year we started a new project with new people, new engineers, and we just need a little bit more time to put everything on track, but I felt good vibes, and I just try to do my best, fighting for the points in the same way as I will fight for the victory in the future.
For a lot of fans watching it, it's hard to see that development because they only see the score, don't they? And obviously with what's happening at the top with this title battle, we don't really see Honda on screen as much as we want, I suppose. Are you seeing that development behind the scenes? Are you seeing those signs of improvements that fans want to see but I suppose aren't at the moment?
Yeah, the problem is that everybody improved during the year. So also Ducati, KTM, through the season, the bike had always upgrades, and also our bike is improved from the beginning of the season, but still not enough. We have to make the double of the job comparing to the other, because our gap is huge and it's never easy. But you will see, I hope very soon, also in the TV, the new upgrades to make us faster and at least fight for the top 10 in every race.
You talk about development. We know that in 2.5 years, all of this development might just be for nothing with the new regulations coming in. I suppose you've got to get that balance, haven't you? Because you want to be competitive over the next 2 years, but if you're talking long term, maybe more wise to develop for 2027. Where do you stand on that as a rider? I suppose you always want to go faster, don't you?
Yeah, sure. I don't think that in 2027 the regulation will change so much the bike. Yeah, a little bit, but still not enough for make a completely new project, in my opinion. So it's important for Honda build a perfect way to work, build a proper team with a good person, good engineers, for be ready for develop the bike also for the future. So we have to do a great job for these 2 seasons, and will help us also for the future, for sure.
Talking about that development, I suppose as a kid growing up, we remember that MotoGP riders are people. They have idols, don't you, like yourself? Growing up, you'd have seen Honda at the top of their game, wouldn't you, with Marquez and whatnot. What's that like, seeing Honda struggle so much? It's got to almost be, you've got to have that personal vendetta to almost make it better, haven't you, rather than just wanting to be fast. It's personal for you, I imagine.
Yeah, it's a challenge that I really like to be part of this project. I'm giving everything, 100% every day, even when I'm out of the track, trying to do my best with all the engineers, try to build together the perfect bike for the future. But we need to work step by step, and at the moment I'm really satisfied about the job, because when arrives a new piece, something new that you asked for, and you see on the bike that it works, so it's a great feeling.
And finally, we see with MotoGP, it's in a great place. It's growing. We've got so many more fans, and we see today with the Day of Champions. Yes. As well. What's that like as a rider, seeing the sport growing in so many ways? Maybe not so much in the UK, although we're hoping that changes, because it's a great sport. What's it like being at the centre of that boom in popularity?
Yeah, it's great. I think still not enough, because our races are incredible. Our sport is much more can share you much more feelings comparing to Formula One, in my opinion. When you watch the race, when you watch a rider on track, is another story comparing to see a car in the track. So I hope that in the future we can be even more popular than this. We will try to do our best. Now there are much more promotional events, so everybody is pushing in the right direction to bring more people. I hope also to arrive to the young generation, to the new generation. That will be so important for me. So all the events that we are doing, all the things that now are part of the job, that is just go fast on track, is even more important every year. And as a rider, I will try to do my best to share our feelings, all the good things that this sport can bring to the people in the best way.
New contract with the team. Just tell us a bit about that, and how happy you are to stay here for the foreseeable.
Well, yeah, I think it was quite expected for everyone. No, it's something that I had in mind. I think that the biggest reason why I renew was for my feeling. No, I came here in 2023 for try to bring this bike back on that times, and to make a competitive package that on that time was not competitive in 2022. So try to be in the process to make Honda successful again. So I expected an easier journey, probably an easier 2 years, and for some reason in 2 years we were not able to score the result that we expected. So the natural thing was to renew 2 years more, because I think everyone in the paddock knows that if one manufacturer is able to make the things to change a bit the things is Honda, with all the things that they won in the past, and all the power that they can have. So if I stay here only the worst time in Honda history, and then when they reverse the situation I leave, so that don't make a lot of sense, you know. So that was a little bit that's why a little bit I renew for these 2 years. If you ask me if I'm happy, probably I'm not happy, because I'm in the same situation than in the previous races, no? That we are not where we want. The situation is the same, but the project that we have is quite nice. Is a good project.
You talked to us about that approach. Tell us about how that's changed. You were used to winning races and world championships before, and we'll get onto that in a moment. But obviously now you're fighting for points, and even sometimes fighting to finish races with how the bike performs. How has your approach changed? Is it a maturity thing, or is it just a patience as well?
Difficult. I'm trying to live with this situation as best as I can. I don't think that I'm doing perfectly, but also, if anyone thinks that can do better, that they have to put on my boots. No, it's a little bit what we say here in Spain a little bit, no? So for me probably was even more difficult mentally, because I come here of having always very good results on the past, and being always very competitive, and in a bad weekend finishing 8th or 7th or 5th. So to be straight away non-competitive and struggling that much is not easy. And also knowing that you don't have the package to fight from Thursday is hard. But you know, this year I think that last year I learned many things mentally, and this year I'm taking a little bit the things a little bit differently, I would say. If I always try till one point, I give the information that I have to give, and I try to be quite patient.
I think it's one of the modern marvels, really, of modern MotoGP, how unrecognised your World Championship is. Do you share that opinion? I think it's been talked about quite a bit recently that your championship is quite underrated. How do you view your MotoGP legacy? You're smiling and nodding. I think you kind of agree a bit there.
No, well, I don't have to argue with anyone that says that. Probably don't know about motorbikes or sport in real, no? Yeah, you with luck you are able to make a good result once in your life, but with luck you are not able to win a title. You have to do 15 races. I think the value probably will get when the years more forward. The people will start to give more value on my title of what we did with the team that we had in MotoGP, giving the 150% of the package that we had. The bike was not the best one on the grid. We managed to bring that bike on the top of the world, and we live a fantastic years. So that's it. I don't care if the people don't give the value that it deserves. Mate, I have the trophy in my room that is fucking beautiful.
We see at the minute with MotoGP the new format with the sprints. A lot of people say maybe it's too demanding, too challenging on the body. I think that was the main thing with your decision to stay. People were like, oh, is he going to even retire from the sport? I think that would have been one of the earliest retirements in MotoGP. Tell us a bit about the sprints. Do you think that the challenge of the sprint is too physical, or do you like is it as simple as you like the sprint or not?
I don't like the sprint because I was not able to. Probably if this you give me in a year that I was competitive, I would say you a different thing. But now that I'm struggling, for me it doesn't make any sense to make one race in the middle of the weekend. But this I would say more personally. But then if you open the mind, what I like to do is racing and to be competitive. So because I say to you that at the moment I'm not enjoying the racing, is not a good opinion that what I can give you about the sprints. So that is a bit the reality. If I'm competitive enough and if I'm happy with everything, I will say you that is a good thing, because on Saturday just the qualifying was a bit not so much thing to do. Then you have an opportunity to make a good race, to see how you feel, to then prepare the Sunday in a better way. I mean, I think that we made MotoGP grow more on Saturday, so that is positive. So yeah, maybe next year if we are competitive, ask me the same question. I will answer you definitely.
I'll hold you to that. And finally, on the growth of MotoGP, we're seeing it growing a lot. Maybe not so much in the UK as a lot of fans would have would have hoped. But what's it like to be part of MotoGP as its stock is slowly rising and hopefully exponentially growing in the next few years? You're at the centre of that now.
Yeah, well, MotoGP is the top of the world in terms of motorbike racing. Is the maximum level of racing with the best prototypes in the world. If somebody I don't like to compare, but if we compare the races of MotoGP and Formula One, I think it's not comparable in terms of adrenaline, in terms of overtakes, in terms of risk, in terms of the bike moving, is a lot more spectacular. And this is, I think, is my opinion and probably the opinion of everyone. But the thing is that Formula One knew how to do it in a very good way to probably make more strategy stuff. I don't know how, but they have a lot of people. So probably now that Liberty Media buy this thing, probably we start to grow more, and this will be fantastic for MotoGP.
So, both actually quite positive. Thanks to Callum as well for doing those interviews, and Honda for allowing us time with both Luca and Joan at the weekend. I mean, yeah, Mir it just seems that Mir is pretty much, why would I leave? Imagine if the bike comes good and I leave. That's his main reasoning.
I mean, we've seen it so often in the past, both from Formula One through to MotoGP, where choosing the right manufacturer at this point, particularly at the moment with the new rules packages coming in 2027. But mate, that's a long way down the road when you're a rider to be riding a bike that you've bloody been injuring yourself on for the last, I don't know how long. I mean, he's given it everything. Well, I wrote a couple of notes down while he was talking there. I mean, it was his choice, and he wants to basically stay with the project as it evolves into the next thing. And if you remember the conversation we had with Neil Spalding, here on OMG MotoGP in a previous episode, Spalding is convinced that Honda are obviously going to come back. They're obviously going to make that work for them. But at what cost, at what time, and at what, problem do you have in your head, your confidence, your ability to keep that momentum going through so much adversity? I think is just a very, very tall order, even for a former world champion like JOAN MIR. I really do. I mean, a tough order. I mean, Marini, was he ever the spec of JOAN MIR? He's never been a world champion, obviously, on MotoGP. So he's happy with his teammate. Well, of course he will be. He's kind of stuck there as well. I mean, it's like two guys that stuck with a team that neither of them would probably choose. But there isn't anywhere else for them to go, with the proviso on the fact that maybe Aprilia might have been an option for Mir if he could have made that work, that connection work.
But I mean, Pete, what both of them did say was, okay, yeah, the team is in the doldrums. This is the worst time for the team ever. But this is still Honda. This is still one of the greatest manufacturers of all time, with the greatest history in two-wheeled MotoGP performance. It'll come back, right?
They always have done in the past, haven't they? But it's as Keith says, how long do you wait? And the time frame for a rider's career and the time frame for a manufacturer are often two different things, aren't they? And this is what happened with Mark, wasn't it? Mark was always clear. Look, Honda will come back, but I can't wait that long. I've got to go. And look where he is now. Imagine if he hadn't have gone, or imagine even if he'd have gone sooner, where he might be now. But yeah, Honda are working. I was speaking to someone. He was. Actually, you'll know about this, Harry, where you can confirm it, that in Formula One, at the start of the weekend, you get sort of an official list of upgrades of what teams are doing. The journalists are actually told, and they're allowed to look at the cars. Is that right? Is that how it works?
Yeah. There's a show and tell where you can go and have a look at what they've done, and they do list all the major upgrades that they've brought. Sometimes they don't show everything, but most of it is there.
Right, yeah. So I just say that because, of course, if you've got maybe the natural secrecy of some of the Japanese manufacturers a bit more than Europeans, you might get the impression, well, what are they doing? Are they doing anything? Are things changing? You know, in MotoGP, you don't get these kind of lists. You have to sort of tease it out of people or spot it yourself on the TV or in the photos and things like that. So in terms of Honda, during the weekend, sort of going back and forth between the riders, it became clear that they started the year with one engine spec, if you like, realized it's not working. They've got problems with it. They introduced another spec, which is the one that Marini's kept with. I think it was around Barcelona. But it's slower. It's slower on the straights. But they think it's got the potential for the future. And Mir said it's sort of one step back for two steps forward. Now, he actually, at the time, he went back to the old engine for the next round. He said, look, this engine is too far off. But he's now been convinced, look, go with this because there's going to be another upgrade to it coming, we think, in Austria. So that's the situation for those guys. Austria, they're pinning their sort of hopes on that a bit. Mir was saying, look, we've got the same package this weekend at Silverstone. We're doing what we can. I asked him how much he's losing on the straights, just the straights. He said 1 to 1.5 seconds. So just if they can make a step with that engine performance, that's one big area they need to sort.
Trouble is, and I think that, again, our boys mentioned it, Mir and Marini, the fact is they've got to make double the progress, and therein lies the problem. You know, it's all very well. Everyone else is obviously making progress. They've got to make double the progress to leapfrog their competitors, and that is a tall order, even for, as you quite rightly say, the magnificent Honda, who we do expect to make a comeback at some stage in the future. I think that the rule change thing is where everybody sorts of aligns again, where all the skill in the factory, they're prepped for 2027. And I'm convinced that riders, if Mir has another year like he's having at the moment, his head's got to drop. You know, it's got to be the case. You can't continue to throw yourself at the fence, you know, in this blind dedication to going as fast as you can on a dog that won't go fast enough. You know, one way or another, it's a tough deal for anybody on a. And Pete, I was smiling to myself when you said it. Yeah, how long is a week or two in racing? Completely forgot the fact that Mark Marquez had already jumped ship well in advance of the fact that he couldn't wait. I mean, you almost let that point just slide through in your usual style, Peter. Very calm. and you're so right. I mean, he recognised where Honda weren't going and how quick they weren't moving forwards. So the $20 million contract or whatever it was just went out the window and off he jumped. And, you can understand why. So Mir and Marini are in a very difficult place. The development riders on a racetrack using little upgrades that they can within the concession rules that they have at this point in time is not a happy place to be. I don't care what anybody says.
No. Well, the Honda struggles continue. I think, LUCA MARINI got a penalty, didn't he, after the race, and Mir didn't finish, did he? So pretty rough for them. I think Marini only has 1 point this season so far. The other team I wanted to talk about, KTM, and, well, not really a very great Sunday. Acosta best in 9th, Miller down in 12th. I mean, well, are you a bit sad, Keith, about Jack Miller at the moment?
I am, because I like Jack Miller as a person. What is he a top-line MotoGP rider? How harsh can I possibly be by saying he's this much off of it? He's not the guy that I would have put money on to beat some of these guys that are out there at the moment. A very, very good MotoGP rider. You know, he made the jump from Moto3 straight into MotoGP. But there's a style and a type and a finesse of riding at the moment that is just different to anything I've ever seen before to make these motorbikes with the systems on board that they've got to work. It's no longer a case of getting hold of it and wringing its neck as it would have been in perhaps, just a year or 3 or 4 ago. It's a different type of riding style. And Jack, I think, is, again, confidence-wise, is a little bit less. And he can't ride around the problem. Jack would, give it his all. You've seen the way Jack is on a drying track or with the wrong tyres or whatever it is. There's no man that rides a motorbike any better than him in adverse conditions. But that final little bit that you need to do what he needs to do just doesn't seem to be there at the moment. I mean, having said that, Binder is hardly any better. KTM have lost their way a little bit as well. And again, it comes down to the fact that Ducati have just made that jump. They just keep making that jump all of the time. And even you've got to say that the RC, the KTM, there's been a motorbike that's been making great big, leaps in technology to get to where they are, and all of a sudden that line has gone flat. There's no more movement upwards. Acosta has been their best, performance enhancement in many ways. The kid's done so well, and he is obviously a superstar. But KTM have kind of lost their way as well. Aprilia really overtook them a little bit as well in the technology front, it would appear, on track. Performance is everything. And at the moment, Ducati are so far ahead. And next year, okay, less Ducatis on track, by 2, but they're all going to be factory Ducatis. they're all going to be on the proper things next year as well. I think there's going to be 26 bikes next year, isn't there, Pete? 25 bikes next year.
3 and 3, I think, Keith. Yeah, 3 and 3. three GP25s.
Yeah.
And then, 3 on the 24th. Davide Tardozzi sort of spilled the beans on the VR46 lineup, didn't he, live on French TV, which was sort of quite amusing for us journalists at the track, and certainly some of the riders. But yeah, he from what he said, it's obviously not official yet, but Digi Antonio stays at VR46 and will get the factory bike. Morbidelli moves across to VR46 from Pramac, and he will stay on the year-old bike, so the bike he's on now. And then if you use process of elimination, that means that Aldeguer, of course, will be in Gresini next to Alex Marquez, because he has a contract but not a team at the moment. So none of that is official, but from Tardozzi saying that on Reg TV, the riders were quite amused that he sort of spilled the beans on the entire Ducati lineup for next year. So await the official announcements, but that's how it looks. So actually interesting. 6 bikes, but only 3 of them factory spec, and yet you'll have maybe 4 factory spec, we expect. KTMs, Aprilias, so they'll actually have maybe 1 less bike of exactly the same spec as the factory, if you like. So is that going to make a difference? Who knows? Acosta certainly thinks it'll be closer next year when they don't have eight lots of data to work through, but only 6.
I wonder if that will benefit them because they can focus more. I think that sometimes you can have 8 bikes on the grid, but I mean, to disseminate all of that data from a weekend in such a short period of time, that's pretty tough to do. So maybe they have the same eyes on less motorbikes might be beneficial in a data acquisition point of view and an appliance of all of that data to reality. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, it will be interesting, won't it? Well, that's sort of where MotoGP lies in the moment. I want to park that there for the minute because I want to. We just have to talk Moto2, and what a sensational win from Jake Dixon, Keith Huewen. Sensational win.
It's been building, hasn't it? I mean, before the summer break, his momentum was moving forwards. He's come into the British Grand Prix in a good mood, in the right way, and he's done the business. I mean, it's just fantastic how a British Grand Prix winner at the British Grand Prix. Blimey, we had it in Formula One. Okay, we're not quite there with MotoGP, but for Jake to do the business, there might have only been 42,000 fans that were there. But
I think they'd half gone by that point as well.
I told you should have come. Would have been yeah. It's kind of one of those fantastic events that what everybody goes to the British Grand Prix for is to see a British winner, and it's so rare. It's so incredibly rare. Jake Dixon. I was looking at some memes this morning of Barry Sheen talking with Greavesy, the old footballer come football pundit. There was a thing that turned up on Twitter earlier on today, X, sorry, and it was and Jake Dixon has always reminded me of a young Barry Sheen. He's got that kind of quippy, south of the border kind of sense of humour and all the rest of it, which is genuine, and he just reminds me of Sheen. If he can just come up with some more race wins, preferably in MotoGP, he might be the saviour of the British Grand Prix because he can't go on the way he's going on.
I mean, he's a character, isn't he, Pete? Even just the celebrations after. And I saw some pictures of you guys, the journos, a bit of an impromptu sort of debrief with him, and he was just sort of resting on a windowsill in the main media centre.
Well, firstly, Ari, as you said, you joked about the crowd had gone home, and that was the big pity, was that the Moto2 race was the last race of the day, wasn't it? That was the problem, because we were watching it as journos whilst doing the debriefs with the MotoGP riders, and likewise, you're looking at a TV screen of the Moto2 race, and hello, Jake's in this, and while talking to the riders from MotoGP. So that was a bit of a shame, because I mean, they would have set the MotoGP race up perfectly among the fans at the track, wouldn't it? If they'd gone into that on the high of having Jake win that race. But I mean, a dream ride from him to take the lead from Canet the way he did, wasn't it? It's just the stuff you must dream about doing, and winning your home race. And you mentioned MotoGP. I mean, it looks like there'll be a few Moto2 riders going up, doesn't there? Chantra is the latest one added to that rumour list. He's standing pretty strong there at LCR now. Bagura also, we're hearing, maybe at Trackhouse. Obviously, Aldiguer's got he's got a deal, isn't he? As we say, we're waiting for the confirmed place. Sounds like it'll be next to Alex Marquez at Gresini. But yeah, it's a shame that it doesn't seem like there's going to be room for Jake at the moment. But yeah, certainly, we keep saying, and as you guys have said, you need a home star, don't you, to get the fans in? And Jake did it. He delivered. And it was just a shame that it wasn't just, I think, in the normal slot, the Moto2 race before the MotoGP, where all the attention would have been focused on it.
And it didn't need to be after the MotoGP. They could have still got their I know they do it for the European time, and they could have still done it at the same time. There was time at the beginning of the day. They could have moved Moto3 a little bit earlier and still had Moto2 built up nicely to MotoGP. Yeah, I don't want to get bogged down here. I want to come to Silverstone, because I'm meaning to, but I just want to, before that, while we're on Moto2, dip down to Moto3 as well, because I feel like I haven't spoken about Moto3 in God knows how long. But David Alonso is currently leading that title. Ortola won at the weekend. Pete, how are you seeing Moto3 play out at the moment? And of course, rough day for Scott Ogden as well, who we had on the show not too long ago.
Yeah, unlucky, wasn't he, Scott, to get caught up in that accident in the race. Yeah. I mean, this year it's Moto2, Moto3, the Pirelli tyres, isn't it? They're just going lap record pace almost from FP1, it seems. And it has shaken things up. It's moved things around, but we're still getting Moto3, especially close racing, wasn't it? Big groups, Silverstone. Keith said it's a great track for racing. All the slipstreaming, the riders all together, all that kind of thing. So you couldn't fault the racing that was on show in all three classes on Sunday. You had different ways of winning it. You had the big group battles in Moto3, MotoGP, Bastianini fighting through, Jake Dixon sort of stalking Canet in Moto2. So you had the full range of sort of racing styles, strategies, and victories. But let's just hope more people come to watch it.
This is the thing, Pete. We hope people come to watch it. Keith, I won't be able to, because they've moved the date, and it clashes with the Monaco Grand Prix next year, Indy 500, and Isle of Man TT. If you're wondering where Keith is, by the way, he's not with the serene music and the occasional rattle of thunder. I think that's chairs being moved. He's in a lovely coffee shop. That's where he is at the moment.
No, it was thunder.
That was actually thunder. No, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I thought someone was just moving a chair on the floor.
It was thunder. I've got my 9-year-old sat opposite me, and it made her jump.
Yeah, I was like, it was a loud bit of thunder. Okay. Plow on.
Probably worth mentioning that the Pirelli made an incredible effort at the British Grand Prix to bring extra tyres, because they'd got experience there obviously on superbikes, but they got no real experience on Moto3 and Moto2. And so they made a huge effort. So big ups to Pirelli for giving the riders and the teams enough tyres to do their job, to make sure that they got the right kit for the day. And as you touched on, really sorry for Scott Ogden. He deserved better than that. He's getting a bit of stick from the odd person here and there, but I rate Scott Ogden quite highly, and I just think that at the minute he almost needs a change of team for me, and we'll see whether he develops if he gets an opportunity elsewhere. Silverstone, it's quite interesting reading some of the comments that come out in social media after the event, if you like, and one that really caught my eye. I rang him yesterday, actually, Tim Harvey. At Tim Harvey 7, if anybody wants to look him up on X. Tim Harvey, good driver, good, real motorcycle man, followed motorcycling for a long time. Tim Harvey is a proper bike man, as well as obviously his cars, which is his main job, if you like, over the years. But he really did stick a ballsy comment into the BRDC, which bearing in mind that he is a member of the British Racing Drivers Club, which is the overarching owners of Silverstone, which, hang on a minute, there's a few toes that he was quite prepared to tread on. And he's exasperated by the way that Silverstone don't promote motorcycles in the way that they perhaps should. Me and you, Harry, touched on this before, and I think you basically absolve Silverstone from some of the responsibility, saying that the Dorna should also pick up the pace, which I'm in agreement with. But I still think Silverstone could do a lot better. Like Tim's point being is that, why would you do away with all motorcycle track days just because you could make a few quid from selling it to somebody else at the time? Why wouldn't you have the odd lost leader in there? You can't really expect motorcyclists to take a racetrack and seriously if the only thing they want to do is take the biggest money off of you once a year. They're not prepared to put on other things around the circuit that are going to bring motorcyclists in, to take motorcyclists seriously. We're a touchy old bunch, motorcycle people. If we feel that someone is basically taking the piss, then as a group you tend to move against that to some extent. And the British Grand Prix is suffering hugely from this negative PR, and it needs to change massively to get that group of people back on side, plus all the extras that we need as well. I mean, there has got to be, I would imagine that if you scanned around and went to some of these high-flying PR firms, they'd look at Silverstone and MotoGP and think, we could fix that. There's got to be. I mean, a group of people that are looking at the MotoGP and thinking, how can that be? A site of that size, the biggest venue on the calendar, bar none, as far as, unless it's perhaps Kota, perhaps might have a similar size plot of land. Indianapolis, if we were there, of course. But yet we're not really making it work. Something somewhere must change, and it can't be just down to Dorna, not pulling their weight. I don't know what you think, Pete, but I mean, I'm slightly exasperated by the size of the crowd. And it can't be just down to money. I mean, we always hear about, they charge us 20 quid to park and they charge us 500 quid for this or whatever it is for camping for 3 days. It can't just be that. I mean, because people pay big money to go to concerts in their tens of thousands. So the money is around, money is there, but for some reason, the love for Silverstone is not there, and I don't understand that. I mean, especially after an event like we've just had. This was a great event. You will not find a better Grand Prix anywhere on the calendar. Forget about Le Mans. I hate Le Mans. Never liked Le Mans, but it's got the biggest crowd there is. It's a huge event, well promoted, but Le Mans, nah, not for me. I'd rather go to Silverstone any day of the week. It's not even a very interesting racetrack at Le Mans. And yet, that is the place to be. Mugello, of course. I mean, that's my heart, is Mugello. If you could get anything like the atmosphere, which you never will at Silverstone, because it doesn't enhance that. But Mugello is the place to go. But Silverstone, 42,000 people. Shit, when I was racing, it was 120,000 people there. And look, it was banks and banks of people when
then you stopped racing and no one
Grand
wanted
Prix.
to watch anymore.
We've found the solution here.
Yeah. Bring back Huewen.
That's it, Keith. Get the leathers out.
Maybe if you had a hanging in the middle of the track and it was me, they might come back just to see that.
What?
Lynching him. And I would think Stuart Pringle would be quite happy to pull them over.
If you want to have a listen back to that episode, by the way, you can do on the OMG YouTube and back in the audio files. I mean, look, Keith said, something needs to change, and I've said it already. One thing that has changed is the date for next year. Do you know much about why that is? Because it just, on paper, does not seem logical.
No, the only thing I heard was that perhaps by moving it away from, let's say, the holiday season in the UK, the school holidays are now, aren't they? That people might have more time available, but I don't know. That moving it to August, that was the reason given when they did that, wasn't it? Was that people are on holidays and they can attend. So, I mean, I guess from the point of view of something's not working, you need to try something different. From that point of view, I don't have a problem with them trying to move it to May. But like you guys have said, I can't quite see how that will pay off. When I look at an event and I think about an event that's turned its audience numbers around, let's say, I'm thinking back to the Malaysian Grand Prix, Keith, and you know Razan Razali as well, and where they came from with their attendance figures and how they got to the sellout crowds, and the effort that they put in. And you brought up the BRDC, the circuits, they created their own race team, didn't they? The Sepang racing team, they brought in the youngsters. That was how they did it. They didn't do it just for fun. They did it to increase the numbers at the Malaysian Grand Prix. That was the purpose of it at the beginning. Obviously, it went on and became more and more successful, but that was their approach to it. It will take maybe something big like that. You were speaking about Scott Ogden and things like that. Imagine him on a BRDC backed bike somewhere else. It might need that sort of input or change needed. Maybe they need to get on the phone to Razlan at the moment. He's he's not running a MotoGP team anymore, and pick his brains for how he turned what was quite a small crowd around previously, and that was with Rossi at the time. Rossi was already there, the big hero. They had quite a small crowd, turned it into a sellout. So there's obviously lots of things involved. I'm not pretending that I know the answers. I don't know, because the organisation and everything, as you guys have said, getting people in and out, it's all done professionally. They do it for much larger numbers for the F1. The ticket prices, as Keith says, concerts, and also the F1 ticket prices, at least double the price of a MotoGP ticket, I believe. And yet they get so many more in. So I don't know what the answers are, but I think you have to try and look at events that are successful and find out what it is, get people in and ask the fans, ask the people that are staying away, what is it? What is it that's keeping you away?
Well, they do that. They do that. I think they do have a survey thing. I mean, Silverstone have done this before. Like there was if you remember, Harry, Formula Renault did a free day. Formula Renault, and there was over 100,000 people there over the weekend for a Formula Renault free day. All the Renault dealerships and everybody got involved. It's going to have to be almost a loss leader to get the place full. You imagine if you're a concession, the big complaint is that it costs you 14 quid for a hot dog at Silverstone. Well, those concession people have to make a bit of money. And if you haven't got enough people footfall-wise in there to make the money, then your prices are a bit higher to compensate for that, perhaps. But all the concessions will be as happy as hell if you've got 100,000 people at trackside, buying all the food. Sorry about the thunder. It is clapping away out there at the moment. Silverstone have been here before where they've put on massive events, and they almost work better when they've got hundreds of thousands of people coming through the gate. When there's only 42,000 people coming through the gate, it's like it's kind of got that horrible feel about it. Everybody can't be asked quite so much. It's not as an exciting an event. It feels longer to walk around the racetrack and walk around and see things because you're not amongst the crowd and the throng and the atmosphere that goes with it during the course of the day. There were pockets of that, obviously, at Silverstone for the British Grand Prix. But for me, being the good old born cynic, I would be keeping an eye on regarding the May date change. I'd be having a little look and seeing what they've intended for the July date. Maybe there's a car race or something that they quite like to put on in July. So they've kicked us back to May. But to coincide with the TT, one of the biggest motorcycle events of the year, which is now, of course, live on television for 15 quid for the 2 weeks. You can TT Plus. I don't know whether anybody listening who's never tuned into TT Plus, which is this fantastic broadcast that's on all day, every day. You can watch it on your handheld, whatever you like. I mean, this has been a real, it's the kind of thing that the TT have done, and they've got one over MotoGP to a great extent by being able to give this thing out for 15 quid. That's all it costs. They might have been 20 this year, can't be sure. But whatever, it's for next to nothing. And then you've got, like you say, car racing stuff. I don't think there's much of a crossover there. I don't think we have that crossover.
No, but I tell you what, a lot of F1 people do like watching the MotoGP, and a lot of people I spoke to were very annoyed that because already everyone hates the fact that the Monaco Grand Prix clashes with the Indy 500, and now not just any MotoGP, the British Grand Prix, and there's a lot of obviously this is sort of people working within the paddock who enjoy watching it. It just seems unnecessary, every motorsport now has an absolutely stacked calendar, no matter what series you look at. But there are enough weeks in the year to make it not clash.
You would have thought Liberty as well, even though they've not yet got the paper signed. I mean, the problem is with Liberty, they don't yet have that situation where they can say yay or nay to something because it's still not been approved yet. Until that deal has gone right through and been finalised, they perhaps don't have a say. But you can be fairly sure that Liberty must be fairly cheesed off that the gem in the Formula One calendar, Monaco, versus the gem in the MotoGP calendar are now on a big, clashing date. It just doesn't make sense.
But is it the gem of the MotoGP calendar? Really? I mean,
Silverstone is from a racing point of view. Yeah, I mean, don't you think we had a great race?
Yeah, but in terms of spectacle and where MotoGP sits as a Spanish sport, I would say that I don't think the British Grand Prix is the gem of the MotoGP calendar. I think it's brilliant, don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't call it the Monaco equivalent for MotoGP. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Pete, I don't know.
I mean, if you're putting an event, let's say that's struggling for crowd numbers up against those historic events that you're saying, I can't see that's going to help, is it? If you're trying to get more people into the track, if even 5,000 people go, no, I'd rather watch Monaco F1 or something, that's not going to help. So, I mean, certainly I would think, give an event that's trying to build its fan base, give them a free weekend. And I'm sure, Liberty surely must think the same. You would look at the events that are strong and say, well, yeah, they can go up against an F1 race because they're selling out. So that's okay. But yeah, to put an event that is trying to sort of claw back its crowd up against a load of other events, and as Keith quite rightly says, the Isle of Man TT, which is massive here in the UK, isn't it, among the biking community? That's a huge one. To put that even close to Silverstone, I can't see how that's going to help.
Well, I mean, we could probably sit here and talk all day about Silverstone. We won't. Don't worry. We will stop it there. And I think we're just about out of time. From what was, though, let's reflect. An excellent British Grand Prix with some brilliant racing. And now we go to Austria, then we've got Aragon and San Marino. So let's just finish things up with, I suppose, a word on, what are we hoping for? What are we looking out for this second half of the season? Pete, start with you.
It's this title battle. I think that's the first thing. Is it a two-way battle as we've seen at the moment, or is it a three-way one, a four-way one potentially? I think these next races will tell us that. Look like Ducati favourite tracks again, should we say? Obviously the double Misano coming up. Their home round. It's a strong event for Pecco, but then Martin won last year. Okay, Pecco was a bit injured, but yeah, I think at the front of the title chase, these are the races, and we should say these are the ones before the flyaways, aren't they? These are the last European rounds, and then they go to the flyaways, come back for Valencia. So I think, by the time they leave for the flyaways, it'll be pretty clear whether the Beast is going to put together a title challenge here. And let's see if there's more surprises, more big names that are making mistakes and crashing out. And then further down the field, it's are these upgrades that Honda have got coming? Yamaha have got this engine that Quattro liked at the private Valencia test and it's not been ready to race yet. He's got big hopes for that. That should be coming up, I think, Bizarro sort of time. So these next few races that you mentioned, Harry. So that's something to look for if you're fans of the Japanese teams as well.
Nice. Keith?
For me, I want to see a resurgent KTM. Austria will be the place to start that, of course, see whether we've got something. Jack Miller back in on the kind of pace that we know he's capable of to save his career, effectively. I mean, you've only got to look at Digi. Digi never had a ride a little while ago, and suddenly Digi's now, his stock value has risen hugely. So it can be done, and fingers crossed for Jack Miller, who's a great guy, and he will be a loss to the paddock if he continues the way he's going. Aprilia kind of dumbfounded us a little bit. Aprilia, I'm hoping for the two underdog top teams, if you like, the KTM and the top manufacturers, if you like, KTM and Aprilia, to make that work for them in the second half of the year. Bagnaia, a few less mistakes, please, Pecco. He still looks to me like the class act of the field, and I can't see anybody getting the better of him by the end of the year. He's too clever, too fast, and he's got the right motorbike.
Oh, well, we'll see about that with Jorge Martin, but it will be an immense title fight, let's hope. So one to make sure we're all tuning in for. And of course, we'll be here every step of the way on the OMG MotoGP podcast with the whole team. across the rest of the season. But for now, I think we shall end it there. Thank you for listening or watching wherever you are. Please do leave us a like, a subscribe, a comment, a review. They go a massive long way to helping more and more people see our content. But as always, thank you so much, Keith Huewen. A special thank you to Pete McLaren for taking time out of your very busy schedule. And in the meantime, we also have a Patreon you can subscribe to as well, where you get early access to some of our interview series. Randy Momola is on there at the moment. Actually, that becomes public this week later on. So you can have a little listen to that. But if you want to get way earlier access to that kind of stuff, it's over on the Patreon. The link is below in the description, and we're going to be adding some exciting new stuff on there as well. So look out for that across our OMG MotoGP socials. But in the meantime, my thanks, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.